Daniel Martel, the
He's on meth.
He's on meth.
He sells meth. And he makes it. He don't like the kids. He beats the kids. He beats her daughter.
That's why
But her daughter might know more than you think. I think the daughter's lying. You must know what happened. There's only 3 people in the state.
Exactly.
We had to do polygraph and everything.
You did your polygraph too?
Yeah, because we used to drop the kids off.
Okay.
Over there.
So you and Cindy and...
Lilly and Jack Sullivan didn't just vanish into the woods. They were only 6 and 4. Too young to disappear without help. Too small to leave no trace. And yet, on May 2nd, 2025, the quiet rural property in Pictou County that had always been their playground became something darker. A mother steps away. 15 minutes later, nothing but stillness. No cries. No broken branches. No small footprints leading away. Just 2 missing children. And a silence so complete, it felt orchestrated. From the beginning, something didn't sit right. RCMP launched an immediate search. Drones, dogs, boots on the ground. The community lit up with urgency. Social media exploded with digital flyers. A GoFundMe went live. People gave what they could. It was supposed to be simple. Rally support, raise awareness, get answers. But answers never came. And the questions? They multiplied. What the public was told, that the children wandered off, or were snatched in an instant, was only part of the story. And the more investigators dug, the more cracks began to show. Neighbors reported hearing shouting from the trailer the night before the disappearance, something angry, violent. Not just raised voices. Something worse. One neighbor claimed, "I heard a man screaming. Then something hit the wall. I thought it was just another fight." That man was Daniel Martel, Lilly Sullivan's partner. He's known to police. Documented domestic incidents. Reports of controlling behavior. Multiple calls to the home. And according to one volunteer, the children were visibly afraid of him. Then there was the surveillance footage. Captured at 6:14 a.m. the morning after the children went missing, showing Daniel's car near an old service bridge, 3 kilometers from the family trailer. That same area where a pink fleece blanket, Lilly's, allegedly, was discovered, partially buried in mud. Not lost. Forensics confirmed it. The blanket had her DNA. Even more disturbing, he failed a polygraph. And he gave inconsistent statements to police. Meanwhile, the family was fracturing. Tension grew behind closed doors. A GoFundMe that was meant to fund the search suddenly vanished. The funds, intended for flyers and outreach, were transferred to a woman named Cheryl, reportedly a family associate, but not a legal guardian or an active part of the search. The reason? Administrative transition. But to the public, it felt like misdirection. Betrayal. One volunteer remembers hearing a phone call right before the shutdown where a frustrated organizer said, "I thought we were doing this for the kids, not to pay someone's expenses." That organizer eventually gave their message logs and screenshots to police, afraid the money wasn't going where it should, fearing the fundraiser had been manipulated. Officially, the RCMP has said nothing about the fundraiser. No charges. No public comment. No confirmation that it's under investigation. But quietly, behind the scenes, sources say investigators are tracking digital footprints, deleted Facebook comments, GoFundMe activity logs, private messages, trying to determine if this was just poor planning or something much more calculated. Because this case isn't just a tragedy anymore. It's a mystery tangled in silence, suspicion, and secrecy. It's about a partner with a violent past, a blanket found far from home, digital evidence handed to police, a public kept in the dark, and 2 children still missing. So ask yourself, if everything about this case was as straightforward as claimed, why is the truth buried beneath layers of contradictions? Why did the fundraiser disappear just like the kids? Why has no one been cleared publicly? Why did someone show up at the bridge the morning after? And why, after months, do we still not have answers? Because what the public was told, and what really happened, are not the same story. Lilly and Jack didn't just vanish. They were erased. and someone out there knows exactly how. It was a quiet Friday, May 2nd, 2025. Nova Scotia. The day began like any other in the still, wooded outskirts of Pictou County. The Sullivan family's trailer sat on the edge of a dense forest, miles from the nearest main road, with nothing but trees and silence beyond their backyard. Birds chirped. The wind rustled through the brush. It was the kind of morning where nothing seemed urgent, and everything felt ordinary. But what happened inside that trailer, between 8:30 and 9:15 a.m., would change everything. According to initial reports, the children's mother, Lilly Sullivan, had left early that morning to run an errand. Just a quick trip, she said. 10, maybe 15 minutes. At home with the children was her partner, Daniel Martel, their stepfather. A man known in the neighborhood for his temper. Known to local police for previous disturbances. A man whose relationship with the children had been described by some as tense, and by others as volatile. Martel claimed he woke up late, after 9 a.m., to silence. No TV on. No cartoons humming from the living room. No little voices calling for breakfast. Just quiet. Too quiet. He got up, walked through the house, and then he saw it. The sliding glass door at the back of the trailer, ajar. Not wide open but not fully shut. And just inside the door, side by side, were 2 pairs of children's boots. Untouched. Exactly where they'd been the night before. Lily's pink boots with faded stars. Jack's navy pair with the Velcro peeling on one side. Martel called out their names. No response. He looked around the yard. Then, according to him, he panicked and called Caitlin. Moments later, he dialed 911. By mid-morning, RCMP officers were on site. A full-scale search was launched within hours. Drones. Helicopters. Police dogs. Over 160 trained professionals, joined by local volunteers, combed the property and surrounding forests on foot and ATV. The terrain was unforgiving. Steep ditches, rocky creeks, tangled branches that could trip a grown man. But these were experienced teams, and their search was methodical. They looked for trails, clothing, food wrappers, any trace that 2 small children might have passed through. And then, they started to find things. Tiny, scattered footprints. A blue child's t-shirt snagged on a branch. And, 3 kilometers from the house, near a decaying service bridge, a fleece blanket. Partially buried in damp mud, as if tucked away. Not tossed, not blown by the wind. Investigators cordoned off the site. Forensic units collected soil samples, photographed the scene from every angle. DNA tests later confirmed what many feared: it belonged to Lilly. And yet, still no children. No drag marks. No signs of injury. No blood. No clear trail beyond the blanket. No indication that Jack had been there at all. Could 2 children ages 6 and 4 walk 3 kilometers, alone, through the woods, with no food, no water, no jackets, and leave almost no sign behind? Many experts said no. It was unlikely. Highly unlikely. Meanwhile, Daniel Martel gave his statement to police. But investigators noticed things. Inconsistencies. Gaps in timing. Unclear answers about what happened during those crucial early morning minutes. And then, days later, a new piece of surveillance footage surfaced. At 6:14 a.m. the day after the disappearance, a vehicle matching Martel's was seen driving alone, heading in the direction of the bridge. The same remote stretch of road where the blanket had been found. Martel hadn't mentioned this trip. He never told police he'd gone back out there. But, when questioned again, he failed a polygraph. His answers were described as evasive and inconsistent. Some of the investigators believed he was holding back. At the same time, tensions within the family circle spilled into the public eye. A fundraiser, initially created by concerned neighbors to help support the search effort, was abruptly shut down. The funds, meant to print flyers and raise awareness, were rerouted to a woman named Cheryl, a family associate with no official role in the case. The switch, described vaguely as an administrative transition, was never explained. Donors were furious. Some demanded refunds. One of the original organizers eventually turned over private messages and screenshots to the RCMP. That's when whispers started to grow louder. Whispers that the blanket hadn't been dropped. It had been planted. That the silence in the trailer that morning wasn't just strange, it was suspicious. That someone close to the children knew far more than they were saying. Even now, the RCMP has not made an arrest. There is no person of interest named publicly. No charges have been filed. But investigators continue to dig. Forensically, digitally, psychologically. Because Lilly and Jack were too young to vanish on their own. Too small to leave so few traces. Too innocent to be blamed for their own disappearance. What happened that morning in the Sullivan trailer is not just a tragedy. It's a mystery unraveling slowly, thread by thread, lie by lie, clue by clue. And whoever is responsible may still be out there. Watching. Waiting. Counting on the world to forget. But Nova Scotia hasn't forgotten. And neither will we. Daniel Marta, stepfather. To some, he was just another heartbroken parent, caught in the nightmare of losing 2 children. His voice, when it appeared in the early days of the search, was low, calm, and measured. He looked hollowed out, as anyone might after such a tragedy. But to others, especially those who had known the family longer, the facade didn't hold. Because behind the soft-spoken interviews and grieving parent image was another version of Daniel. A more disturbing one. It began with whispers. Then, recordings. A leaked audio clip, allegedly shared by a family insider, sent shockwaves through online forums and local networks. In it, a voice, trembling with anger, accused Daniel of being far from the devastated parent he portrayed. The man in the recording was described as a meth user. Aggressive. Dangerous. The insider said Daniel would lock the children in their room, sometimes for hours, when they got too loud. That he had a violent temper. That he had beaten both the children and one of Malehya's daughters. The quote was stark. Unfiltered. He beat the kids. And he beat her daughter. And she just took it. She stayed with him. That wasn't the only revelation. Police had already responded to multiple domestic calls at the trailer in the months prior. Neighbors described hearing screaming, not just arguments, but thuds, doors slammed, objects thrown. One neighbor said, "You'd hear yelling, then silence. Not the kind of silence that says things are okay, the kind that makes you afraid to ask." In the days following Lilly and Jack's disappearance, Daniel volunteered to take a polygraph. On social media, he later insisted he passed. He said he had nothing to hide. He loved them like his own. That's how he always phrased it, like my own. But it wasn't what he said publicly that raised eyebrows. It was what he reportedly said in private. In one conversation, recounted by a volunteer who had briefly helped distribute flyers, Daniel allegedly dismissed the children's mother, saying, "I don't even think Malehya is grieving anymore." The words hit hard. Not only was he emotionally distancing himself from the mother of 2 missing children, he was implying something colder. That she didn't care. That the pain wasn't real. Or worse, that she had a reason not to feel it. To some, it was just bitterness. A fractured relationship unraveling under pressure. To others, it was something far more ominous. A man laying groundwork. Shifting focus. Redirecting blame. It's also worth noting, Daniel didn't attend every search. Several local volunteers said he was noticeably absent during key community-led ground efforts. One person who helped coordinate the bridge area search said, "He wasn't there when we really needed manpower, but he had time to be on Facebook talking about polygraphs." Even more concerning were the contradictions in his timeline. Surveillance footage caught his vehicle traveling toward the same service bridge, after the children were already reported missing. The area where Lilly's pink blanket was later found. When pressed about it, he allegedly gave unclear answers. First, he didn't mention it at all. Then, when it came up, he brushed it off. Said he was just driving around. Couldn't sleep. But the RCMP didn't buy it. He was asked to take a second polygraph. This time, sources say, the results were inconclusive. And as investigators continued collecting evidence, phone data, private messages, deleted posts, a pattern began to form. One that didn't prove guilt, but cast long, troubling shadows over Daniel's role in the house, his relationship with the children, and the events of that morning. To this day, Daniel Martel has not been arrested. He hasn't been named as a suspect. The RCMP remains tight-lipped. But to many who've watched this case unfold, his actions, his words, his tone don't sit right. Because grief doesn't sound detached. It doesn't lock children in rooms. And it doesn't quietly follow a car to a hidden bridge the morning after 2 children vanish. Someone knows what happened that day. And some believe Daniel's silence is the loudest clue of all. The children's biological father, Cody Sullivan, was out of the picture. No presence in courtrooms. No public appeals. No birthday posts or custody petitions. Just gone. Whatever had severed his connection to Lilly and Jack, be it distance, choice, or something darker, he was no longer part of the equation. In the eyes of the public, he was a ghost. And in the reality of day-to-day life, he was an empty chair at the table. That left Malehya Brooks Murray, mother of Lilly and Jack, as the one tasked with raising 2 young children in the shadows of Nova Scotia's rural isolation. And she wasn't alone. Living in the trailer with her was her partner, Daniel Martel. To some, Daniel was just another working-class man. Gruff, private, minding his business. But those who looked closer, those who knew the family's rhythm, told a very different story. Daniel had a temper. Not just the kind that flared over spilled coffee or loud cartoons, but the kind that turned walls into punching bags, voices into weapons, and silence into fear. Multiple relatives say they tried to intervene. Malehya's own family pleaded with her to leave, to take the kids and get out while she still could. They say they offered her shelter, transportation, even legal assistance. But she wouldn't go. But that question lingers like smoke after a fire. Was it fear of Daniel? Fear of retaliation? Was it emotional manipulation? The kind that makes you believe that danger is love? Or was it something even harder to confront? Trauma that convinces you this is the best you'll ever have? People talk about leaving abusive relationships as though it's a door you simply walk through. But in homes like the Sullivan Martel residence, the door is often locked, from the inside, from the mind, and from the past. And while Malehya stayed, the signs of danger were piling up like kindling. Neighbors heard screams late at night. Not tantrums. Not sibling fights. Screams. Doors slamming. Furniture crashing. Children crying. One neighbor later said, "We'd hear something crash, then nothing. Just silence. Like everyone was scared to breathe." Child Protective Services was reportedly called multiple times. There were allegations of abuse. A child showing up at daycare with a dark bruise on his upper arm. Lilly becoming quieter. Withdrawn. Flinching when adults raised their voice. And then there were the locks, installed on the outside of the children's bedroom door. A CPS worker allegedly noted this in a file and questioned it. The explanation given? The children were too active. They needed to be kept safe at night. But locking children in their room from the outside isn't safety. It's containment. It's control. Reports say CPS did home checks, made notes, issued warnings. But there was no removal. No court orders. No safety plans enforced with urgency. Just paperwork. Meetings. Promises to monitor the situation. And then May 2nd, 2025 came. Lilly, age 6. Jack, age 4. Gone. No sign of forced entry. No witnesses. Just an open sliding door. 2 pairs of boots. And a mother who said she stepped out for a few minutes. The search that followed was massive. Over 160 trained professionals combed through dense forest. Police dogs. Drones. Helicopters. And then the blanket. 3 kilometers away, near a forgotten service bridge, search dogs uncovered a pink fleece blanket, damp and half buried in mud. Forensics confirmed it belonged to Lilly, but it didn't appear to have been dragged or dropped. It looked placed. That's when the narrative shifted, from accident to possibility of abduction, from tragedy to suspicion. And suddenly, every red flag that had been ignored or downplayed before the disappearance snapped into full view. The CPS visits, the bruises, the screaming, the locked doors, the neighbors' warnings, the family's failed interventions. Daniel Martel became the focus of public scrutiny. He'd taken a polygraph and claimed he passed, but later admitted to failing a second. Surveillance footage placed his vehicle near the bridge the morning after the kids vanished. He never explained why he was there. And Malehya? Her public demeanor drew its own set of questions. In interviews, some saw heartbreak. Others saw detachment. As time passed and no children were found, her silence began to sound less like grief and more like complicity. Family members began to distance themselves. One close relative posted, "We tried to help her. We really did. But you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved." Today, there are still no arrests. No one has been charged. The RCMP continues to investigate. But the question that now haunts this case more than any other is this. How many warning signs were needed before someone stepped in? How many bruises had to be seen? How many calls had to be made? How many chances did the system have to intervene before 2 children vanished into the woods and into silence? Because this wasn't just a random act of fate. It wasn't an accident. It was the end result of neglect, fear, bureaucracy, and silence. And if Lilly and Jack's case teaches us anything, it's that danger doesn't always knock loudly. Sometimes, it whispers. And we look away until it's too late. The case tore the town apart. What started as a desperate community search for 2 missing children quickly devolved into chaos, dividing families, dismantling friendships, and leaving Spring Hill and its surrounding towns buried in mistrust and suspicion. This wasn't just another headline. It was personal. Everyone knew the Sullivan kids, or knew someone who did. They had seen them at the local park, at the gas station, outside the trailer on sunny days. People brought food to the search teams, prayed together, posted signs on every mailbox and storefront. But as the days passed and no answers came, the grief turned sour. Rumors spread like wildfire. Online forums were flooded with accusations and questions. Social media became a battlefield. Local Facebook groups, TikTok accounts, Reddit threads, each one filled with amateur sleuths, armchair detectives, and people who were just angry. And the anger had a target. People questioned everything. Why wasn't the mother crying? Some said shock can look like numbness. Others weren't convinced. She didn't plead on camera. She didn't break down publicly. Her silence was dissected frame by frame. "If my kids were gone, I'd be screaming," one user posted. "She looks like she's already moved on." Why didn't Daniel help search? Volunteers remembered who showed up, who stayed late, who kept coming back even when the hope was fading. Daniel Martel's name wasn't on any of those lists. He wasn't seen at the bridge, or the forest line, or near the old service road where the blanket was found. "He never even thanked us," said one woman who coordinated one of the early ground sweeps. "He was always missing, just like the kids." And then the hardest question of all. Why did it take so long to speak out? There was no immediate press conference. No coordinated family statement. Not from Malehya. Not from Daniel. Not even from extended family. When the mother did appear in a brief video posted days later, it felt cold to some. Too rehearsed. Too short. No tears. No urgency. And by then, the damage was done. The silence had created a vacuum. And the vacuum filled with rage. Locals began turning on each other. Some defended the mother. "She's in shock. She's been abused. You don't know how you'd act in her shoes." Others snapped back. "She let him stay. She let it happen. Those kids didn't protect themselves." Friends stopped talking. Families clashed at dinner tables. One lifelong resident posted, "I've lived here 38 years. I've never seen our town this torn apart. It's like the grief broke something in us." Even the search teams weren't immune. Volunteers argued over how efforts were being coordinated. Who was really in charge? Why weren't certain areas being rechecked? Was someone pulling the strings? Donors started pulling out. After the GoFundMe scandal, when funds meant for search and rescue were suddenly redirected to a family associate named Cheryl, trust was gone. Refund requests flooded in. Locals began posting screenshots of private conversations. Screenshots became voice recordings. And the recordings revealed infighting, accusations, even subtle threats. It wasn't just a search for Lilly and Jack anymore. It had become a search for truth. Some still believed it was a tragic accident. Others whispered of abduction. A few started to believe in something far darker. A cover-up involving not just a household, but institutions, money, silence. The RCMP remained publicly cautious. No suspects named. No charges laid. But privately, sources say they were following every lead, including those born from the chaos online. And through it all, two truths kept colliding. 1, 2 innocent children were gone. And 2, someone in that community knew what really happened. Because kids don't just vanish. Not without a sound. Not without a trace. And not without someone carrying the weight of a terrible secret. The town may never fully recover. But what it demands now, what it screams in every comment section, every late-night porch light vigil, is not just closure. It's accountability. It's truth. And above all, it's justice for Lilly and Jack. The search stretched across 3 counties, miles of unforgiving wilderness, ditches, ravines, swamps, and stretches of logging roads so remote they didn't appear on most maps. It was one of the largest mobilizations Nova Scotia had seen in years. Over 160 trained personnel, search and rescue dogs, mounted police on horseback, night vision drones, choppers cutting through fog, volunteers on foot lining up shoulder to shoulder, walking the woods in silence, calling 2 names that never called back. And yet, nothing. Not a trace. Not a sound. Not a scream heard. Just one chilling discovery. A pink fleece blanket, found near a service bridge, damp and half buried in mud. DNA testing confirmed it belonged to Lilly. But there were no footprints leading away. No sign of Jack. No vehicle tracks. No surveillance footage catching a break. For days, it felt like they had simply evaporated. But maybe that's because the search was looking in the wrong direction. Maybe the truth was never in the forest. Maybe it never left the house. That possibility, the one everyone feared, was the one RCMP couldn't ignore. So they turned their focus back to the trailer. The last place Lilly and Jack were ever seen alive. Search warrants were executed quietly at first, then more aggressively. Officers swept the home more than once. They didn't just walk through it. They dissected it. They seized devices, phones, iPads, laptops. Anything with a screen or a signal. They pulled cell tower data, scrubbed call logs, dug through text messages, browser histories, cloud backups, deleted files. Every click, every photo, every sent or unsent message was treated like evidence. They interviewed everyone, starting with the mother, Malehya Brooks Murray. Then her partner, Daniel Martel. Neighbors, friends, former CPS workers. Volunteers who'd been in and out of the home. Some cooperated, others hesitated. There were polygraphs. Some passed, some didn't. But what our CMP found wasn't just inconsistencies. It was contradiction on top of contradiction. Malehya said she stepped out for just 10 minutes the morning the children vanished. Daniel claimed he was asleep the whole time. But surveillance footage showed his vehicle driving toward the bridge area less than 24 hours later, alone, at 6:14 a.m. He never gave a clear reason why. One relative said Daniel was violent, that he screamed at the kids and once shoved Jack hard enough to leave a mark. Another defended him, saying he would never hurt those babies. A CPS report months earlier noted bruises, unexplained injuries, and doors with locks on the outside. But nothing came of it. And then there was the fundraiser, meant to support the search, shut down within days, with the remaining funds allegedly rerouted to a woman named Cheryl, not directly involved in the investigation or search efforts. That decision ignited a new wave of backlash. More questions. More confusion. In a matter of days, what began as a community tragedy spiraled into something darker. Distrust. And a storm of silence. And through it all, our CMP held their line. No suspects named. No arrests. No official statement of wrongdoing. Just the promise that they were working every angle. But people weren't convinced. Because you don't just lose 2 kids without someone knowing something. Kids don't vanish into thin air, not like this. Not without a sound. Not without help. Every search team said the same thing. There were no signs of them walking off. No drag marks. No blood. No evidence of animal involvement. So if they didn't walk out on their own, someone took them. And whoever that was may have never stepped foot in the woods at all. Maybe the answer isn't buried beneath moss or tucked under a fallen log. Maybe it's buried under lies. Hidden in devices. In untold stories. In quiet glances between two people who shared a home, a bed, and now, a secret. Because the deeper the RCMP dug, the more they found things that didn't add up. And still, no one has cracked. No confessions. No charges. Just digital trails. Tufters. Failed polygraphs. And a town that no longer believes in coincidence. And so the question still hangs in the air, choking every search party, every prayer circle, every late-night theory shared in a private group chat. Was the forest ever really the crime scene? Or was it just the perfect place to hide the truth someone inside that house didn't want the world to see? This isn't just about two missing children. It's about a system that looked danger in the eye and blinked. It's about every moment that should have changed the outcome but didn't. Every red flag that was noticed but not acted on. Every bruise that was documented but not investigated. Every scream heard through trailer walls that no one followed up on. It's about the reports filed and quietly shelved. The home visits that ended with reassurances instead of intervention. The professionals who monitored instead of protecting. The calls made to child protective services that were logged but led nowhere. It's about Lilly Sullivan, just 6 years old, trying to grow up in a house where love was complicated by fear. And Jack Sullivan, 4, too young to even name what he was afraid of. It's about what they endured before they disappeared, and who let it continue. Because make no mistake, they didn't vanish in a vacuum. There were warning signs. There were people who knew something was wrong. Neighbors heard yelling. Family members raised concerns. CPS reportedly visited the home multiple times. Locks were allegedly placed outside the children's bedroom door. There were bruises, excuses, denials, and still, no one removed them. No emergency orders. No safety plan that saved them. This isn't just about Lilly and Jack being gone. It's about how long they were in danger before anyone took it seriously. And when they did vanish, the system kicked into overdrive. Search teams were deployed. RCMP officers fanned out over 3 counties. Dogs, drones, helicopters. The forest combed again and again. But maybe the search never should have started there. Maybe the real danger wasn't out in the woods. It was inside the house the whole time. RCMP searched the home. Seized phones and devices. They administered polygraphs. Interviewed 54 people. Followed 488 tips. But still, no arrests. No charges. No clear suspect. Just digital silence. Just families pointing fingers. Just a town in pieces. Meanwhile, the online world ignited. People questioned everything. Why wasn't the mother crying? Why didn't Daniel join the search? Why was a fundraiser redirected away from the children? And beneath every one of those questions is a deeper truth. People don't trust the system anymore. Because time and again, it fails to act until it's too late. We've seen it before, with Dylan Eller in 2020. And now again, with Lilly and Jack in 2025. This is about the community that rallied in heartbreak and was repaid with confusion. It's about the volunteers who walked through forests while people inside the house dodged accountability. It's about a fundraiser meant for awareness being quietly rerouted to someone who wasn't even helping with the search. It's about witnesses coming forward after the fact, bringing screenshots, recordings, whispers that should have been screams. This isn't just about 2 children disappearing. It's about a culture of hesitation, bureaucracy, and silence. It's about systems that wait for concrete evidence while kids cry behind locked doors. That demand a body before they believe a warning. That ask for proof, not patterns. That forget kids don't need to be dead to be in danger. We can't call this a tragedy and move on. Because this wasn't fate. It was failure. Failure to listen. Failure to act. Failure to protect. And until we fix that, until we stop treating child safety like a checklist, until we start treating every warning like a cry for help, this will happen again. This is about every child we didn't save in time. And every child still waiting for someone to finally believe them. We used to drop the kids off. I remember Jack cried one time, said, "He's mad again." You could see it in their eyes. They were scared, not of being lost, of being home. It was said quietly by someone close. A friend, a neighbor, someone who had seen the way the kids froze when voices got loud. The way Lilly stopped laughing when Daniel stepped outside. The way Jack clung tighter when it was time to go back. To the world, it looked like a struggling family. To those who were watching closely, it looked like a house holding something darker. This wasn't a sudden break in a perfect picture. This was a pattern. One built over months, maybe years. Bruises were seen. Screams were heard. Doors were locked. From the outside. Teachers, caseworkers, neighbors, people noticed. But noticing isn't the same as acting. And action came too late. Child Protective Services visited. At least once. Maybe more. But no one knows what was done, only that nothing changed. The kids stayed in that house. The adults stayed in control. And the fear kept building. Family members begged Malehya to leave Daniel. They offered help. A way out. But she stayed. Was it love? Fear? Dependency? Trauma? No one really knows. But now, no one can undo that choice. Then came May 2nd, 2025. The day the silence grew loud. Daniel Martel claimed he woke up to quiet. The kids were gone. The door was open. No cries. No struggle. Just two little pairs of boots, neatly left behind. RCMP responded immediately. Search parties swept the woods. Dogs barked through thickets. Helicopters cut through the mist. Over 160 professionals spread across 3 counties. They searched everywhere. But the truth didn't seem to be out there. Maybe it never was. That's why RCMP turned back to the trailer. They seized phones, tablets, hard drives. They interrogated everyone, again and again. But there was no confession, no arrests, just timelines that didn't align, stories that changed under pressure, and a surveillance video showing Daniel driving toward the old bridge the morning after the kids vanished. Then came the pink blanket, buried in mud near that same bridge. Forensics confirmed it was Lilly's. And suddenly, the investigation tilted. Because someone placed it there. It didn't blow in on the wind. It wasn't lost. It was left. There were inconsistencies in all of it. The timeline, the statements. But without a body, without a confession. That's what a source close to the investigation said. Everything pointed inward. But no one could close the loop. Meanwhile, online forums exploded. Why wasn't Malehya crying? Why didn't Daniel join the search? Why was the fundraiser shut down and redirected to Cheryl? Why did the people closest to the kids seem the least involved? Donors demanded refunds. Volunteers felt betrayed. Neighbors stopped speaking. The town fractured. And still, no children. No charges. Just rumors. And silence. But beneath that silence is something worse. A chorus of missed chances. Every visit CPS made that didn't remove them. Every neighbor who kept their suspicions to themselves. Every time someone heard a crash and thought, not my business. Every moment someone chose comfort over confrontation. These weren't just missed signs. They were cries for help. And now those cries echo through empty bedrooms, through Facebook pages filled with vanished photos, through forests that hold no answers. The story of Lilly and Jack isn't just about what happened on May 2nd. It's about everything that happened before. The trauma that wasn't seen. The secrets that were kept. The pain that was normalized. And in the end, and maybe they told themselves wasn't a sudden tragedy. That the time to speak up has unraveling passed. Of protection. That saying something now will only make things until there worse. Was nothing left but that's holding these children safe. Because every day this that passes is what happens when we wait too long. The damage deepens. When we doubt the whispers. Every day that Jack when and Lily's names aren't instead of believing pain. The people Lilly who failed and Jack Sullivan didn't just disappear. Every day that the person who knows the truth chooses silence. The weight of that silence grows heavier by a system that reacts instead of prevents. So if that person is you, and now stop waiting. What's left is not just for someone else to come forward. It's don't guilt. Wait for the RCMP it's a community to knock on your door. The same question. Don't wait until your conscience is too loud to sleep sooner. Would they still be here? Bring what
3
you know.
months have passed.
No matter how small
And yet
it feels.
Lilly is still 6.
Bring your screenshots.
Jack is still
your
4.
texts. Time
Your
has
doubts.
moved on for the
Your
rest of
fears.
the world.
Your
Seasons
guilt.
have shifted
Because this isn't
schools
just
have
about
reopened,
2 children
families
anymore.
have returned to their
It's
routines.
about a community
but for
left
those
in the dark.
closest to the case,
It's about
and for
trust
anyone
that's
who's
been
been paying
shattered.
attention,
It's about
the clock
justice
hasn't
that's
ticked forward
overdue.
at all. You may
Their
not get
beds
another
remain
chance.
untouched,
And they may
their
not
favorite
either.
shows paused
3
on the
months
last
is already
episodes
too
they
long.
ever watched.
Too long
Their
for
backpacks
silence.
still hang by the
Too
door.
long for shadows.
No arrests.
Too long
No
for 2
suspects
children who
officially
deserved
named.
better. No
So
bodies
speak.
recovered.
Step
No
forward.
sign of life.
Tell the truth.
Or death.
Help bring them home.
Just the same recycled statements from officials, the same exhausted words repeated
And maybe they've
at
told
every
themselves
press
it's too
conference.
late.
The
That the time to
investigation
speak up
remains
has
active.
passed.
All
That saying
leads are
something
being
now
pursued.
will only make things worse.
We ask the public
But
to
that's
come
a lie.
forward. Because every day
behind
that
those
passes
official
without
phrases
answers,
lies a colder
the damage
truth.
deepens.
This case is
every
growing
day that
colder
Jack
by
and
the
Lily's
day.
names aren't
The community
cleared or
has done
avenged.
everything
The
it
people
can.
who failed them get
Volunteers
one more
have
day of
searched
freedom.
forests,
Every day
rivers,
that the person who
abandoned
knows the
cabins.
truth chooses
Posters
silence,
have been mailed
the weight
across
of that
provinces.
silence grows heavier.
Fundraisers
and
have
crueler.
started and
So if that
collapsed
person
under
is you,
controversy.
stop waiting.
The internet has
Don't
tried
wait
to
for
piece
someone
together
else
the
to come
timeline,
forward.
the
Don't wait
alibis,
for the RCMP
motive.
to knock on your door.
Still, no
Don't
answers.
wait until your conscience
And yet
is
we
too
know
loud
this
to
much.
sleep through.
Someone
Come
knows.
forward. Maybe
Bring
not
what
the
you
whole
know,
story, no matter
maybe
how
just
small
a moment.
it feels. A sound.
Bring your screenshots.
A movement.
Your text.
A confession
Your
whispered
doubts.
in a kitchen.
Your fears.
A red
Your
flag
guilt.
ignored
Because
at the
this
time.
isn't just
Or
about
maybe
2
they know
children
everything.
anymore. Because
It's about a
children don't
community
just
left in the
vanish
dark.
into the woods without
It's about
a trace.
trust that's been
Blankets
shattered.
don't fold
It's about
themselves and
justice
bury
that's overdue.
quietly in the mud.
You may not get another
Surveillance
chance.
footage doesn't
and they
glitch
may not
at just
either.
the right moment.
3 months is already
Fundraisers
too
don't
long.
vanish unless
Too
someone
long for
makes a
silence.
decision.
Too
Stories
long for
don't
shadows.
shift unless someone
Too
is
long
hiding
for
something.
2 children who deserved
Somewhere.
better. Right now,
So speak.
someone is walking
Step
around
forward.
holding the truth.
Tell the truth.
Help bring them home.